back, my fellow Aeternians. I ask all my fellow Aeternians to please rise and celebrate, as there is some amazing news to discuss today. Firstly, thank you all so much for joining the stream. Any of you that watch it afterwards, it means a great deal. One of our biggest updates is that we are trying to start working on a new streaming method. So right now we are currently having to run a setup in which we have our laptop connected via local access network and then actually streaming over Wi-Fi to my phone camera here in the Hall of the Empire, which is pretty well sheltered from all sorts of things, but unfortunately that also blocks Wi-Fi signals. It makes it difficult to connect. So we are pretty soon going to be working, developing a full LAN connection to the phone, so that way we should be able to stream directly from our local fiber connection, and that should help the quality of these videos a lot. So if you see lags or delays or issues, please let me know, and please continue to watch so that eventually when we get that high quality, you can tell us if it makes a difference for you. Now, move on to the meat of the subject. The biggest things that we are doing as the Empire of Aeternia here, building Talon and Vine Farm, our second Imperial territory. There is a lot to discuss. First off, we have our biggest celebration in Imperial history fast approaching. 10 years of the Empire of Aeternia, our 10th ever founding day, and our fourth ever publicly celebrated. So this is a huge milestone for us each and every year, has been grander and has provided more value to us as Aeternians and to the wider community to witness what it is that we are building year upon year. So as we move forward toward that, the date is officially announced as of this moment, August 22nd, 12,026 of the human era will be the day on Talon and Vine Farm that the Empire celebrates Founding Day. Now, if you know Imperial history, Founding Day is actually on August 20th. However, this is the most convenient date for us. Pushing out a couple of days allows us to host on a Saturday, allowing maximum attendance and a grand celebration to occur. Now, moving forward from that, we also need to discuss the Garden of Nations, the thing that we have been pushing for so long here in the Empire and trying to develop roots in, literally. The Garden of Nations started last year, if you recall, out in the, well, it started 2 years ago, out at our capital territory of Vitae, completely undeveloped, and it struggled. There was too much wooded area, there was very little sunlight getting to our plants, and because of the long distance and the harsh conditions to travel that way and the high expense to get there, we were barely able to take care of our plants. They did not survive very long and could not produce a yield for us. So the next year, last year, we developed the Garden of Nations here once we acquired Talon and Vine Farm. We were in a rush to set things up late in the season, and so we did manage 3 raised garden beds. We were able to grow tomatoes, we were able to grow eggplants, we were able to grow bell peppers, and we were even able to grow cabbage, not to mention the abundance of fruits that we have here growing on the farm, including blackberries, elderberries, and muscadines. So we were able to do all of this, reap some small benefits last year, and just see what we could put in the ground and what would work. This year has been more calculated, still an experiment in our ability to provide for ourselves and use the soil we have to create abundance. We are not by any means at full production capacity or even efficient use of our land, but where we are is pushing forward into sincere benefit for the people who live here. And that's not just myself, that's not just my partner Tiffany either, that also includes a second family we have here on Talon and Vine Farm, our first official resident and his family. Wright David Morris, the Wright of Talon himself, moved in last month to Talon and Vine Farm, becoming the Empire's first ever permanent resident aside from the imperial family on a territory of the empire. This is huge. We thought for years that if we were able to develop enough at Batay to eventually create residents there, it would be an overwhelming Herculean task. And while that task is still put on page, while we are still pushing forward with that effort, we have pivoted because of the amazing opportunity here at Talon and Vine Farm, and we were able to invest in a house, in a dwelling that was already on the property to be able to develop it and establish a home for someone who well deserves it. So we have our first official residence here at Talon and Vine Farm, a huge milestone, not only for the citizen who has now become the first official resident, and also a member of our government, a proud one who is helping to take care of this farm, to help develop it into an efficient production mechanism for us, but also for the empire as a whole. Having a primary permanent resident means that we are able to push forward with more efforts each and every day. The farm, Talon and Vine Farm, our territory becomes more productive. We are able to showcase more of what we're doing to the local public, and we are hopefully able to push forward with more effective means of getting this out to you all. One of our biggest setbacks, one of the things that's always held us up, is being able to get the news of what we're doing out to you all, the masses, the wonderful Aeternian community out there on Discord, on Instagram, on TikTok, and here on YouTube. We have to communicate. We have been building slowly, letting you know when we can what we're doing, but you are missing huge gaps in our everyday work. And that's not on you, that's entirely on us and our limitations in production. But in doing all of this, and in now having people who are incredibly passionate about it, who are helping us to make these strides and who are taking a lot of the weight off of our shoulders for this growth, it means we have the ability to invest in other things. These won't come quickly. We still have lots and lots to maintain. Each and every citizen, each and every resident of Talon and Vine Farm, each and every citizen of the Empire has a lot on their plates. So we're slowly pushing. These things won't be at a breakneck pace. They won't be goals that are set out for a particular year, particular day, but we push forward nonetheless, and we will get those improvements to you as they come out, so that not only do we all have an improved quality of life, but you have an improved quality of expectation and of audience to the Empire, connection to us. And so that is a huge milestone for us. Before we go too far, I want to make sure that I am checking on the stream here. And so I am going to jump in just in case anybody has any questions or anybody is watching. Thank you so much for participating here. And I am going to jump onto YouTube Studio to make sure that I am seeing everybody's connection to us. If you do have questions for us or our Empire, whether it's about what we're discussing this stream or anything that you have seen about the Empire, please, please reach out to us and let us know here. I am eager to connect with you all in that way, to answer those questions. Okay, we're jumping in here, looking at the live control room. Kingdom of Alzora says, hi everyone, my founding day is October 10th. Congratulations, Alzora. We're rooting for you in that development. It'll come a couple months after ours, almost actually just a little over a month after ours, and we'll be rooting for you. We'll be excited to see what those festivities entail. Fate Mafade says, I'm my first friend, and hello, is it Christmas or not? Looks like you're Christmas. What are you talking? Oh, goodness. They're spamming. XQ says, what's the flag in the back? I've got you, XQ. So this is the flag of the Empire of Aeternia. We are a micronation. We are a country. We are developing based on the motto, unite the invisible, achieve the impossible. What does that mean? It means that we seek to bring together and support all of the people who feel that they are not provided for, that they are not supported, that they are not seen by their local communities, by the nations that they are a part of, and strive for a better life. And so we want to bring all of those people together. We want to see them, we want to represent them, and we want to help strategically and collectively build a higher quality of life. Now, this isn't something that happens immediately. There's lots of twists and turns in the road, but we follow the arrow of progress, which is that symbol right there, the gold in the middle. It is the arrow shooting through the eye of the axe head from the story, The Odyssey, if you know it. And what we represent when we say we follow the arrow of progress is that we push forward throughout time to this seemingly impossible task, to provide for these people, to push our society into the future, and to do what so many societies have sought and struggled and still struggle today to achieve, to provide that high quality of life for each and every person who is a citizen of that nation. And that is what we do. That is what that flag represents behind me. The arrow of progress and its momentum pulling the Empire of Aeternia into the future. And as we say, Aeternia forever, to support that, to ingrain that idea and that belief in us, to push us forward without stop to achieving a better future for those around us. Now, that is a great question. And if you are interested in becoming a citizen of the Empire and helping us to achieve those goals, if you have skills that you can teach us to improve us and help make us better at what we do, you can apply for citizenship at one of the links in our description, especially if you go to our website. It's eternianempire.wixsite.com/imperial market. That's a mouthful, but it is a link in the description as well. You can check it out. You can apply for citizenship. And you can also learn more about us through the Guide of Foundation and Principles there, which is our founding document. It describes everything that we do and why we do it. That all being the case, we have a number of important topics to discuss. Again, we've already discussed the Garden of Nations and how we've been growing. One thing I didn't mention in reference to the Garden of Nations is that we are preparing not for the most massive harvest in the world, but certainly many times larger than we got from last year's first sincere development and production from the Garden of Nations. Its second year, its second harvest. Well, its second year, but its first harvest. This will be its third year and its second harvest, and it will be sincerely larger than we have ever achieved before, which isn't saying a great amount, but it'll be valuable for us. This year is different because it will make a sincere dent in what we have to purchase externally from the empire. We are a country that, unfortunately, building from the ground up, must import and invest in ourselves just to achieve some relative stability and just to be able to start on the cusp of self-sustaining nature. So, at this point, one of our biggest and most recent investments has been a large, deep freezer. Now, this is, I believe, if I remember correctly, a 35 cubic meter. I'm not sure if it's 35 cubic meters. I'll have to double check. Maybe 35 cubic feet in volume. Chest deep freezer. Has two big handles, two big doors on it. It can hold quite a lot of food. Now, why is this so valuable for us? Well, one, again, we are going to be growing things, not just this year, but in future years, that can be stored long-term by freezing. That's one of the most effective methods for food preservation, as you all know. When you get things from the store, one of the first things you'll do, especially if you do any kind of meal prep, is freeze things. So, freezing our food will be a big part of our strategy in the empire to reduce our costs long-term and be able to save as much money as we can to reinvest in the empire's growing of its own production. Now, that growth and that development is going to be a long-term process. And so we are going to be seeking out and experimenting with every single way we can to maximize that production and to maximize what we can get and actually extract from the land. Crops that we grow, as well as all of the berries and other wild forageables that we have out here throughout the year. That's also going to be investing in things to extend our growing season. Here in North Alabama, we have quite a forgiving growing season. We can grow things generally from about March, April, all the way through November normally. November starts to be the cutting off point, but at least through October. So that is a long, long production season for us, a long, long harvest that we can have, maybe a couple of harvests. And so the big push for us is going to be to keep planting and keep growing and keep experimenting and keep trying to get everything we can throughout the growing season this year and stockpile it. We're going to try to pickle things. We're going to try to preserve things in other methods. But if all else fails, we can freeze things. And that will help, again, not only supply more and reduce costs for the Imperial family in myself and Tiffany and my father, but that will also be able to provide for the first family of residents here in the Empire. So again, this is a huge monumental milestone for us, and that is one of the things that we are going to be able to push for. Both the fact that Right David is the Right of Talon, he's effectively our farm manager out here day to day, able to help us build, grow, develop, and understand the capabilities of our farm, where it stands and where it needs to go, is huge. That is extra hands, that is extra minds being put to the task, that is extra planning, that is extra observation. So that's huge. That being the case, we also combine that with the expanded plot, which could only be possible with additional hands. So we have more production here. And then on top of that, this combination of the long-term storage, the deep freezer, which will allow us to not only be able to save more of the things we produce here locally to the territory inside of the empire, but also any imports that we make, because of the economies of scale. Buying things in bulk reduces the cost per volume or per amount that you purchase. So we are able to expend the extra upfront to invest in a certain product at a certain price in bulk, and then store that long-term in this freezer and allow us to reduce our costs over the year for that particular item. So again, these are slow, steady savings that build up into a significant investment in our infrastructure, which allows us more financial independence and investment in our production. This cycle is growing, being made possible because of your support, your ideas, because of wonderful citizens like Right David, because of wonderful citizens and government officials like Right David, as well as High Envoy Fred, who is, of course, our High Envoy to Huntsville, Alabama. And that is another person who is helping us to push forward, because for all the things out here at Talon and Vine Farm, he is going out and planning a quest. We're not sure when that quest will be, but sometime in July, you will be able to see both High Envoy Fred, our primary envoy to Huntsville, Alabama, the person that you talk to and interface with as a mechanism to connect to the Empire of Aeternia directly, as well as the Right of Talon himself, the mayor of our farm, our agriculture, and most of our economic production right now. They will both be live in Huntsville, Alabama, connecting with locals, trying to build reputation for us, and trying to understand what it is that people need on the ground in their local communities, and bringing it back here to push us further. We're going to be recruiting, we're going to be trying to make connections, and we're going to try and explain to people what all of this we're doing means for them. So, that being the case, we will have lots of opportunities for that coming up very shortly, with whenever this quest drops that Right David and High Envoy Fred are working on, and I'm incredibly proud to be a part of it. I'm basically taking a back seat at this point. A lot of interface with the Empire of Aeternia has gone directly through me in previous years, but now we are starting to see a fundamental shift in that for the Empire of Aeternia, and what that means is that we are getting new faces, new opportunities for people to connect with us. So, that being the case, I'm just going to be building the supplies and providing the things for Right David and High Envoy Fred. And so if you've seen them in previous live streams and videos on our various social media, you're going to be able to connect with them if you're in Huntsville, Alabama in July. We'll drop the date for that coming up soon, but I want to jump back one more time to Founding Day, our 10th Founding Day, our decade marking the beginning of the Empire of Aeternia. That day, again, will be August 22nd of 12,026. This coming August 22nd, we will be having the Empire's 10th Founding Day. And we will most likely be having a special guest. Now that the date has finally dropped and been announced, I believe, and we will hold our breath in anticipation for confirmation, but Queen Bougie and Prince Amar of Mecklenburg City-State, another micronation here in the region of Alabama, will be attending. Again, this is not perfectly confirmed yet, but there have been talks, there have been announcements, and so we are waiting for the final confirmation to get plans set, to get lodging defined, but things are happening. I also wanted to put this date out to announce to the rest of the Micronational community, if you would be interested in attending the Empire's Founding Day, we will be having it open to the public. We will be inviting members of the local political community. We will be inviting our friends and neighbors here to witness 10 years at the Empire of Aeternia and to get free benefits from our labor. We will be having food, we'll be having drinks, we will be having a large celebration of games, and it should be quite fun. So if you caught any videos from last year's 9th Founding Day, definitely go back and check it out if you haven't. It was a blast, bigger than we'd ever done it before, and this year should be no different. We're going to go big, and we're going to have a great time doing it. So, all of this is building a Talon and Vine Farm. All of this is developing the Empire, celebrating our accomplishments, trying to find new faces to teach us and come in and reshape the Empire and build its culture as citizens and as government officials, maybe one day residents like Right David. There is one more thing to discuss, which helps to connect all of this further. It helps to push all of it a little bit more. We have been speaking to the local political community. We've discussed that a little bit, but things are starting to escalate. And I'm incredibly excited about that. But before I reveal everything, let me go ahead and check a couple more comments here. First off, thank you all so much for watching. It means a ton to us, and you're helping the Empire grow every day by doing it. Let's see. Any fancy Micronation says, hi, hello, great to see you. Thank you for supporting us. Alzora says, I have my founding day the 1st of October to the 10th of October. Wow, okay, so you celebrate for a full 10 days. That's incredible. I hope it's a full 10 days of festivities, but maybe it's not. Maybe there are cultural celebrations in between. I'd love to learn more. Francania says hello. Hey, Francania, great to see you. Azora says, do you have a currency? We sure do. If you check on our website, you can find it through the Imperial Market, which is our Etsy page. And you can also find it through the Guided Foundation and Principles, through our other social media, on Instagram, on TikTok. Long story short, we have the Imperial Note. It is our currency. Let me see if I have any on me at the moment. I very well may not, but we'll look and see. I don't know that I do. I have my Imperial identification on me, though, which is always a cool thing to show. Let me just double check to make sure that I don't have any Imperial notes on me. I do not, tragically enough. I need to put some in my wallet to show off, but that being the case, here is the Emperor himself, citizenship license. Now, I actually need to update this, and this is going to be something that happens on Founding Day, not just for myself, but for many of the Imperial citizens around. I'm going to see if I can't kind of turn it and angle it, see if I assist with the lighting a little bit. I know there can be some glare and stuff, so I'm going to see if I can help there, but this is my citizenship license right here. When you become a part of the Empire of Aeternia, you get a digital citizenship license. And then if you would like to have a physical copy, you can purchase one. I believe for $5, they're fairly cheap. And so you can get one, support us that way, and also allow us to send it out to you, and you can have it in person. But we do have the Imperial note as well. It's pretty cool. It's red. It's very stylish. I like it. It's been the same way for quite a long time, for probably 6 or 7 years here in the Empire of Aeternia, and it has served us well. As we continue to develop our economy, we hope to, in fact, do more with the Imperial note and actually push it beyond our borders, but that's a discussion for a different time. Great question, though, Zora. Kingdom of Viridia says, what happened to the aluminum ingots? Oh, I will tell you, my friend. Absolutely nothing. We are still producing aluminum ingots, although we don't do it at near the frequency we had been previously because we've been developing Talon and Vine Farm. If you recall, this is actually one of the first aluminum ingots that we made in bulk. This is a very cruddy design. This is one that we just poured when we did not have an ingot mold to cast in. So this is very rough. This is, you know, a rock, but it is pretty nice, pretty crazy. Have some updates there as well. Even though we aren't mass producing a ton of ingots, we are giving one out. Well, I say one, giving potentially many out during this quest that will be happening in July. Again, High Envoy Fred, Right David, will be going out into the United States city of Huntsville, Alabama. They will be going out, they will be talking to locals and getting them to compete in a quest. For those of you who are part of our Discord, you know about our quest. I think a number of you have been eager for more quests. And though we don't have a digital one ready to go right now, that may be coming up in the near future. For the moment, we are pushing on a physical quest, one that people can go out, find Right David, find High Envoy Fred, engage with them. If they complete this quest successfully, they will receive one of these aluminum ingots. And not only that, the aluminum ingots will be made a little bit special. We have recently come into an engraving tool in which we can more easily, more quickly mass produce carvings into metal, glass, wood. And so that being the case, we are moving forward with some more custom, more artisan development there. But that'll be quite exciting. We'd also like to work one day to make that into a mold where we can actually then mass produce ingots with the arrow of progress in them, not by carving each individual ingot, but by having it just poured directly into the ingot mold with the arrow of progress already a part of it. So that's something exciting to look forward to in the future, but we are working for now in development there. So the people who participate in that event, again, in Huntsville, Alabama, sometime in July, please stay tuned to our streams and our updates on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube here, as well as our Discord, to be notified of when you can find Right David and High Envoy Fred. And even if you aren't local to Huntsville, Alabama, and you're trying to connect some other means, you definitely should keep updated, because we will be dropping some of these quests, and you may be able to receive one yourself in the mail, or something else, maybe some Imperial notes. You never know. Maybe your own Journeyer's license, even. So there is a lot to be discovered here in the Empire, and a lot that we're pushing forward with. Now, Jason says, bro looks like a coal test leader. If that's like someone who tests cold medicine or something, I gotta say I'm not. I think he meant a cult leader. but he misspelled it. So I don't think that counts as a full call out there, but I'll take the bait. We're not a cult. I understand the instinct to jump at that. You're certainly welcome to look into us. Please do your research on us and really make yourself feel and know one way or the other what you think of us. Come to us with specifics. Hey, this is what you've done that is a problem. This is what you're doing that is harmful. Because we try not to be. We try to be transparent. We try to explain what it is we're doing and why it is we're doing it. And we're ultimately trying to make the lives of other people, both in our nation, who are citizens of us, who believe in our ideals and who push us forward, but as well as other people, people like you who want to insult us. We're trying to provide a higher quality of life. So please, again, just do a little more research. Talk to us even. Email us, reach out to us, and we're happy to discuss more. Then you can make your determination, and you can go out to the world with evidence and say, hey, I talked to them. I also looked up other stuff from other people, and here's why I say that these people are bad. Or this is why I say, hey, maybe I was, a little bit quick. I jumped the gun a little bit. Make your choice momentarily. Swagzilla says hi. Great to see you. Oh, excuse me, not Swagzilla. Cal says Swagzilla. Thank you so much. You know I'm here, big repping with the drip every day. Thanks, Cal. Avaria Kingdom says hi. Great to see you, Avaria. Wraith Studio says hi. Alzora says message retracted. Restonia says hello, Aeternia. I saw it said eternity and you corrected it. Thank you so much. That means a ton. Typos are a whole thing. Autocorrect changes our name every time. But maybe if enough people write Aeternia into their phones and say, nope, ignore autocorrect, this is a real word, maybe we'll get some updates. Maybe phones will stop saying it as much, or at least individual people who know about us. And that's a win. That in and of itself, the fact that phones would start to recognize the name Aeternia is powerful. So thank you. Also, it says, I'm working on my currency. It's called the Zorion Notes. Very cool. Well, we're excited to see them. New Hampshire Mapping says hello. Hello there, New Hampshire Mapping. I hope you've been able to map every single square centimeter of New Hampshire. And if you haven't, keep pushing. The arrow of progress will guide you in mapping every nook and cranny of New Hampshire that you need to get. Get into the streams. Climb onto the tops of trees. Use bird's eye vision to precisely and in great detail map every grain of sand, every blade of grass, every rock under your feet, every drop of rain. You've got this, New Hampshire Mapping. We believe in you. And I'm excited to see what you do. Republic of Sarah says, hello. How many people live in Aeternia? That's a great question. So, how many people live in Aeternia? I will answer as residents. So that's people who live on Imperial territory. People who have been not only citizens of Aeternia, but actually gone a step further and achieved residency here. It means they are so crucial to us that we have them living here on the Imperial territory, protecting them, supporting them, and honestly grateful that they are here and providing us with all of their incredible skills. That's a huge investment for us, and it's a huge investment and risk for them to be able to take on the challenge of living here full time. That is myself, that is my partner Tiffany, that is my father Jerry, that is Wright David, and that is his partner. So that is 5 total on Imperial territory that are full-time residents on an Imperial territory here at Talon and Vine Farm. There are unfortunately 0 permanent residents out at Vitae, although there is regular monitoring and trying to build it up over time. This is a years-long effort, but eventually we hope to have more people, more residents living out at Vitae, which will become our capital territory, than we do here at Talon and Vine Farm. Now, to answer a broader question, which is how many citizens do we have at the moment? Currently, we have 13 citizens. That includes the 5 mentioned who live here on Talon and Vine Farm, That also includes another government official of ours, which is High Envoy Fred, who I want to mention by name. That is also Richard Taylor. That is also Stephen Vince. That is also Eric Sherman. There are quite a number of citizens who are a part of the empire, who make us what we are, and who contribute to us every day. We currently sit at 13 citizens, and I am incredibly grateful for all of them. Oh goodness. It looks like we're having streaming difficulties. I hope it caught everything that I said. If not, please let me know. Republic of Sarah says, do you have a military? We do not. We do not believe we have a need for a military. We do defend our territory to the extent that we can. But no, we do not train a military. We are not an armed people to that degree. We're not trying to build weapons or do anything like that because we don't see the need to attack or invade or create armed conflict with others. That's not how we progress. That's not what the arrow of progress teaches us and helps us with and guides us with. We try to work as a collective. We try to work as a group of people who are all trying to improve each other's lives. So if there is a conflict, we try to resolve it through conversation, through planning, through development. And if there is a conflict externally, we try to handle that via the laws of the empire as well as the laws of the external nation and try to find some common ground. That's not always possible, in which case we have to push forward with what we think is best and deal with consequences as they come. But we never seek violence. We never push for militarization or weaponization. Friendly, we are peaceful. We are trying to make a better tomorrow for us and for you. Aeternia forever. Francenia says, hello, what can I do for people to recognize my country? That's a great question. I would say, first off, the biggest thing and one of the hardest for micronationalists is just to talk to people about it. Explaining what a micronation is to people is a tough, tough road. It is something that is confusing to people. Sometimes people directly, immediately reject it. Sometimes that can come with quite large feelings, either for or against what you're doing. And so you have to be really careful there. And you have to learn and develop the language that you use to describe your nation and show off what it is that's practically a benefit for them for what you're trying to do. Talk about your progress. Talk about what it is that you are able to offer to them. That's the biggest thing, is just talking to people, getting your face out there, trying to make friends, and those friends hopefully will support what you're doing. And if they don't support what you're doing, it's always important to have self-reflection and to think about, well, is what I'm doing the right thing to do? Is what I'm doing safe? Is what I'm doing appropriate? And you make changes, you adjust, and you push forward. And that is how you get people to support and know about your nation. Now, something else to think about as well is most people, again, don't know what micronations are. Some do. Many very online people do. But to those that don't, it's super important to show them examples. If you are a micronation and you're developing, but it's hard for you to show practical benefit, right? Like if you don't have something that you can say, hey, my micronation is important because this exists, and this was made by my micronation, or this exists as a result of my micronation's existence, and it wouldn't exist otherwise. That doesn't have to be a manufactured product. That can be something you've written. That can be a video you've made. That can be, a charity event that you've supported. Not even one you've created, but just one that you've supported. Some good that you've done for someone. That can be in an individual person's life in a way that you supported them. Maybe a citizen, maybe a stranger. But if you can't do that, if you struggle to find any example of where your nation has already been able to provide benefit, you talk about the benefits that you want to develop and what you want to do in the future. And in the meantime, just so that they understand what a micronation is and don't just think about ideas as these very intangible, very far off things, you can show them other micronations that you feel are a positive example. If you're looking for a nation that has a long storied history, one that has been able to rally its local community around it and have a spirit of fun about it, you can visit and discuss the flashiness of Slojamistan, a more recent micronation, but one that has swept onto the scene with charisma and with its own unique style that makes a lot of people happy. You can also look at nations like Sealand, which have been these very boisterous, very grand, very aggressive micronations that have staked their claim to sovereignty. They're very serious about it and will not hear anything different. And they've made significant strides in their justifications, their claims for sovereignty, in real unique and valuable ways to them. So all of these nations, incredibly valuable, incredibly interesting. And if I might brag for us and pitch ourselves, the Empire of Aeternia is a nation that's been around for nearly a decade. We are a group that is in a unique situation because as an empire, as a country that is developing, as a civilization that is being built, we are neither like Sealand, where we were off on a fort and able to establish our territory outside of other nations' jurisdiction and say, you have no say here. We are inside of our territories, at least. Our physical territories that we own legally and control are inside of the jurisdiction of the United States. So that's something that's very difficult for us. We have to create within the bounds of U.S. law, and we have to push forward our independence culturally and economically, which is a much longer road. We are also in more of a position where we have to try to prove ourselves maybe in different ways than, say, Molossia or Slojamistan, who are very focused on the culture of their nations, who are very focused on the identities of their nations, but don't necessarily have to meet the same provisions for trying to establish like residencies and things like that on their territories. They aren't necessarily trying to build permanent settlements in the way that we are. So there is this strange line that we have to exist in, and I think we're a unique case for it. So if you would care to have a nation that you can show that has a long history and many different projects that we've worked on, many different things that we are actively trying to push for, some of which have been years-long efforts that have finally been accomplished and have built groundwork and have been improved upon over the years, and some of which that have been planned out and discussed and modified and shifted and still haven't quite taken hold, but are always becoming another part of this longer and more grand plan that we have as we develop the details of it, as things become more practical. We get closer, we have more realistic pushes toward things that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, were impossible seeming. And now we are much farther along. So there are many micronations to choose from in discussing what a micronation is, but you should always have some examples to go to people. Even us, the Empire of Aeternia. If people haven't heard about us, even though we try to push out our social media and stuff, most everyone hasn't heard of us. We have to fall on more famous examples. Nations like Slojamistan, like Molossia, like Sealand, like Liberland, like Asgardia, the space nation. There are so many examples. Hutt River, there are plenty. West Arctica, there are seemingly endless. And you pick and you find what is valuable and important to you, and you find ones that are connected to things that you believe in. And that's how you explain more about micronationals. Republic of Ceres says, wait, and how much land do you have then? That's a great question. So we have approximately 20 acres total of imperial territory, and that is broken down in two ways. We have about 16 acres, little over 16 acres, here at Talon and Vine Farm. And then we also have a little over 3 acres at our capital territory of Vitae. So total, we end up with round about 20 acres. And that is quite a substantial jump. Again, we started out with Vitae, the first imperial territory and our capital, our empire's capital, the place we hope to build the most residents and the most homes for our people until we are able to expand into another primarily residential or industrial territory. Vitae is the place where our people will primarily live, where our residents will reside in their dwellings. And that was only a little over 3 acres. So it's a significant amount to have quite a number of homes. However, that is very small in comparison to Talon and Vine Farm, a much larger territory, but one which was already developed as an agricultural producer, something that is an economic engine and can be viable for the long-term sustenance of our people. So we have gained this massive advantage in having Talon and Vine Farm, and this thing that can be a sincere method of growth and security for our people, but one that we have to balance very carefully. Republic of Ceres, how can you enforce law without guns? That's a great question. We enforce our law via consent. So nobody can visit the Empire of Aeternia, again, which is within the legal jurisdiction of the U.S. state of Alabama, and larger than that, the United States, without our consent. And vice versa, they need to consent to be here. So if someone does not consent to follow our laws and rules, they don't get to stay here. We don't have to draw guns on somebody to have another group that we pay to enforce that law for us in a way that prevents us from having to get into much larger and more complicated legal issues ourselves. If you exist within any confines or any jurisdiction of any nation on earth, which can even be out in that nation's territorial waters, for example, or in its airspace, if you pull weapons on someone, if you try to enact violence or threaten to enact violence on someone, you now have to deal with the laws and the enforcers of the laws of that much larger nation. That's not something that you want to do, even in situations that are contested. There are larger peacekeeping forces that will come in and will set the law, so to speak. So, that being the case, we do have to work within the confines of U.S. to be able to operate and continue to grow and to exist. But that being the case, we still carve out our independence. We still push forward and have people who do identify us as the Empire of Aeternia, as an independent nation, here on Talon and Vine Farm and at Vitae. Come here, visit us, support us, become citizens, become residents even now. People who stay here as their main home, as their place in and day out, and who identify as Aeternia, who consent to the worldview that the Empire is a nation in its own right, the same way as any other nation, and who, on top of that, help to push that each and every day. It is very difficult socially and within the confines of larger U.S. law, of even our ability to defend ourselves just physically with our hands, to go into a territory which has a number of people in it, a number of people who live there all the time, and then a number of people on top of that who visit regularly, who don't want you to be there if you don't consider them a nation, if you don't agree to follow the laws that they have laid out. It's not that we can enforce that for everybody, and we don't try to. But the people who do follow those laws consensually are allowed to stay here. The people who don't consent to those laws are swiftly removed. We don't need guns for that. Ristonia says, how can I help grow my micronation in the community? again, it's talking about it. It's talking about it. It's making that value known to people. We have videos on these topics as well. I don't want to cut you off or not answer your questions. There are plenty of ways to do all of these things in much more detail, but the biggest thing that I've learned in all my years of experience in this and in trials and errors have been talking to people, just getting face-to-face, getting on a Zoom call, messaging, whatever it is, and discussing what their needs are, what your needs are, and what you can do practically for one another. That works for citizens, that works for allies, friendships, media, whatever it is. You will do well in that, but also we have videos talking about micronational economics, micronational culture, micronational politics, creating a micronation in playlists on our channel. So please go back and check those out. We've been making those for years, and we're super duper proud of them. Some of them have pretty high quality, if I do say so myself. So check them out, watch our journey, and keep on watching us and asking these questions. Sarah says, what does Aeternia think about Transnistria? We would have to learn more about you, to be honest. It's hard for me as the Emperor of Aeternia to say, this is Aeternia's official decree on Transnistria when I'm not well educated on it. That's not necessarily all your fault. I have seen you all in our live streams, but with my busy schedule, I have a tough time keeping up with the community in some areas. We're trying to grow our citizenry to be able to provide additional skilled people who can learn more about nations and connect with them one-on-one. But until then, you'll have to teach us more about it and teach me more about it. Bellamy says, hi, that's some lag for you. Oh, goodness, I'm sorry about the lag. And thank you so much for letting me know. We are, again, I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream, but I do want to clarify it here. We are working on that, assuredly. Currently, I have to do a weird LAN to Wi-Fi setup for my phone to actually be able to stream these live streams inside of the bunker that is the Hall of the Empire. It's very difficult to get Wi-Fi signals in here, so we LAN to then an internal Wi-Fi, and we've created a network here. So eventually, we will be able to have a fully established LAN connection all the way to our actual stream itself, and at that point, we should be running on fiber speed. So hopefully, that will make things a little better for us. But let me know how bad this lag is, because sometimes I go back and watch a stream and I say, yeah, there was a little bit of lag, but it's survivable. And sometimes I watch them and my face is pixelated and it's horrible and I can't decipher anything I'm saying and it's a mess. I look like I'm moving in super slow-mo with a huge trail behind my hands and stuff. So please let me know, and we will be working to improve the stream. Thank you for being here regardless. It means a lot to us that you are watching the building of our nation in real time, including the sloppy output from our live stream as we become a more technologically advanced nation, literally in front of your eyes. Bellamy says, so do not enforce laws that are not a law of the U.S. No, we do, but again, consensually. People who do not agree to the laws that we set out, whether those are laws that are already U.S. laws or whether those are laws that are imperial laws specifically, are not welcome. That, you know, people who come to the Empire of Aeternia, you can't just show up to a territory. There's a process. You have to be either invited to the territory, in which sometimes we have public events, but the people who come onto the property, we greet and we discuss with them that this is a different country that they have entered and that they have to consent to the laws and following those laws that they are now beholden. So, that being the case, we're generally pretty understanding of visitors who may not know all of the laws, and we try to explain that. And to be honest with you, we don't have too many crazy laws, but we do have a few, particularly around access to locations, particularly around certain manners of speech and things like that. But other than that, we don't allow racial prejudice. We don't allow overly sexist or homophobic language, things like that. So there is a decorum that you have to follow when you visit the Empire of Aeternia and one of its territories in particular. And if you don't, you're asked to leave. And if you don't leave, then we have a much greater law enforcement presence external to us, which recognize our ability to control the land legally, even if they don't recognize us as a nation. And we don't necessarily need to bring a gun to somebody to get them off of the territory when the people that we pay taxes to in the United States, who require us at gunpoint to pay taxes to them, will come and do the same to you if we don't want you here. So they value us as a part of the owning class, I suppose. The people who control this territory. We are legally recognized in the United States as people who own and control these territories, and they will enforce that for us. We really don't have to enforce that. We can just say, there's someone here that we don't want here who we've asked to leave, and if they don't leave, there is an enforcement mechanism that will come in and remove them. We don't like to do that, and we fortunately have not had to really do that, but that is always an option for us. We want to be independent and self-reliant as much as possible, but there is certainly a line between saying, hey, we're going to escalate a conflict internally so far that externally we're breaking US law, that then gets US law attracted to us and we cause a problem, and it becomes something where one of our citizens gets taken from us, or the emperorship has to step down because there's an arrest made or something. That is a nightmare scenario for us. So we don't want to have that. That is something that can really break apart the empire and all of the work that we've built over this decade. And so that being the case, what we have to do instead is to say, hey, we are a real nation. But we are a real nation. We are a civilization that is held in constraint by a larger civilization because we exist inside them. We grew in a place where another nation already existed. So, that being the case, we respect the laws and customs of this much larger and stronger nation around us, but we can assert our identity as what we are. We can push forward in every way that doesn't get us physically removed from the territory, and we will, economically, culturally, and as much as we can do that, we can push forward into other countries and establish territories and do the same thing, and places eventually outside of any country's jurisdiction or territory and do the same thing. And we will have more and more capability culturally, economically, and legally as we do that. But for right now, we have to operate in a way in which allows us to continue to exist for the far long-term future. If we try to act too rashly and we say, oh, we're doing all of this craziness, we're going to push back and we're going to be crazy, that's how nations fail, that's how businesses fail, that's how any organization that any group, collective of people try to form falls apart instantly. That is dangerous thinking. That is problematic. That is divisive. That is a direct path to isolation, to extremism, to not progressing a wonderful and communal and supportive, self-sustaining future that we would like to see, but instead, that is a backstep. That is a demotion, a degradation, for lack of a better word, a breakdown of that future, making that future further away, more impossible, by choosing violence, by choosing conflict rather than a cooperation. So we won't always get our way, but we will find a path to get it eventually. If we can't make a move right now, we'll do something else to do something else that steps us closer to it, that gets us more recognition, that gets us more authority. And we will achieve it. We follow the arrow of progress, and progress always moves forward. So, we will achieve it because, as we say, Aeternia forever. Republic of Sarah says, I'm from the Alaska Islands area, so very cool. Bellamy says, and our laws are Aeternia, and then says, Parched Quail asks a great question and says, what's the point of a nation without a military to enforce national sovereignty? Well, I hope I've explained that. You know, again, we are pushing forward with trying to establish for ourselves a brighter future. We consider ourselves and are identified by ourselves, both in our citizens, our government, and in people who are outside of our community, people who don't identify themselves as citizens of Aeternia, people who aren't a part of our government, people who don't contribute to Aeternia at all, except that they recognize Aeternia as an independent nation, as a civilization that is building, and its territories as independent. That being the case, that is cultural advancement. That is people changing their worldview to see that there is a new country that exists. At the same time, there are plenty of methods in which we can further the future, the progress, and the quality of life that the people who do support Aeternia have. And that is something that really changes people's worldview. That is something that bolsters us economically. Bolstering us economically allows us to purchase more territory. It allows us to purchase territory not only inside of the United States, but external to the United States. It allows us to operate more fluidly between those territories. It allows us to make more value for the areas that we do have territory in, which increases our political influence in those areas, which allows us to further request support from the local governments that exist to kind of further increase and improve recognition of our territories and of our ability to operate within those territories. It is not for us to create fights with other nations to verify our existence and to put our mettle to the test and to see which nation survives. If fight until every nation agrees with us that we are an independent nation. No, we just support ourselves. We just build slowly over time. We recognize that we have dual citizens, people who love the United States. I am a dual citizen of the Empire of Aeternia and the United States. I am proud to be an American citizen, but I also want to develop a country that is able to move more directly to the future that I believe in than I have seen the ability to do within the local political infrastructure, even the federal political infrastructure. So instead of putting my time and money and resources there, I put my time and money and resources into the development of a nation that is already building the groundwork to make a huge difference in my own life and in the people who I know locally, who I care about's lives. And that can create a chain reaction that provides bigger growth and more development. It provides more local economic development, not only to our territories, but also to the communities that we inhabit, that we have to operate in, that we require resources from, and that we want to provide resources to for continued economic gain and recognition, cultural support. It is all about whether people individually recognize you as an independent nation. That's how you get things like UN recognition, is if billions of people across the world recognize you as an independent country, it's hard to deny. So there are more things politically that you can push for and expect. If only a few people recognize you as an independent nation, then it's going to be very hard to gain things like UN recognition. And you probably shouldn't seek UN recognition at that point, at that small stage. There are building blocks, and we are setting those blocks up slowly but surely. We are identifying ourselves and explaining our goal clearly and transparently and saying, we identify as an independent country. We have citizens, we have government officials who operate as though we are an independent country. We still absolutely respect the laws of the countries that we come from. We absolutely are still proud to be from the countries that we come from, but we are trying to make a path all our own, and we are doing so in a way that isn't confrontational, that is cooperative. And we just continue to advance that goal each and every day forever. Generation, our children's generation, or their children's generation, we will persevere and we will achieve the things we seek. Bellamy says, question, how do territories or provinces work? Do you have mayors? We have town ministers. That's a great question, Bellamy. We operate as territories, and those territories will eventually have lords. So this is an interesting point because we do not have all of the government positions that are designed in the empire filled. This is because of a lack of citizenry to be locally present and able to act in the ways that we need, as well as the development of a high enough population in residency to provide for the need there. We have currently Talon and Vine Farm, which I presently reside in, so it's a little bit unnecessary to establish a lord for Talon and Vine, which would be like a governor or a mayor who oversees the political operation, the governmental operation of a territory, when I have to do that directly as 90% of my job at the moment. That being the case, we do have somebody who does more of an economic aspect to this territory, which is Right David, the Right of Talon. He is the worker, right? Right means worker, builder. He is the person who sees the development of Talon and Vine Farm and pushes it forward and helps us to create this farm, helps us to establish improvements over the years and figures out what we do with these resources. So Right David is a government official. He is someone who oversees Talon and Vine, but he isn't the buck stops here, final governing authority over this territory. That falls back to me. Again, we have Vitae, which is our capital territory, and I am not living at Vitae, so it's hard for me to manage Vitae day to day. At the same time, Vitae doesn't have any permanent residents. We have citizens who go there and build and work, but Vitae is relatively undeveloped. So the downside to that is that we just do not have enough people who are experienced enough as citizens in the empire, dedicated enough, and in a place in their life, honestly, where they can go out and fully reside at Vitae. We need to build more infrastructure to make that more feasible for more people. And also, that's just a large investment. Even if you have a fully put together house ready for them, a dwelling like we do here at Talon and Vine Farm for Right David and his partner. So this is something that is very close to our heart and something that is an area in which we've just started to progress. So we've had these plans for a long time of, well, as we grow more territory, we will have different smaller parts of the government, which our government is constructed as the emperorship and then houses. And those houses are like ministries where they maintain different aspects of Aeternian life. So, for example, we have Right David, who is the Right of Talon, and he is a part of the House of Solace. And the House of Solace oversees everything that deals with the building and development, the construction, and maintenance of the territories. So anything that provides solace and comfort and makes these territories more comfortable, a better home for people physically, that is what the House of Solace does, and that is exactly what the Right of Talon's job falls under, in creating a viable, productive, sustaining, health-sustaining food production life cycle for the Empire of Aeternia at Talon and Vine. Now, we also have the House of Others, which deals with external capabilities, which deals with connecting to both those people who are others in the sense that they are foreign diplomats, they are local politicians from macronations, they are business people, they are people who may even be interested in citizenship, for example, in the Empire of Aeternia. Anybody who is not directly, actively a citizen of the Empire of Aeternia or a resident here at one of our territories, they generally go through the House of Others to contact, to have relations with, to work within the structure of the Empire of Aeternia. And that is primarily run currently by High Envoy Fred. He is the High Envoy, the main direct line and connection for others outside of the Empire of Aeternia to interact with us in one of the biggest metropolitan areas that we have contact with locally, which is Huntsville, Alabama. So that external part of the U.S. We are connected to, we support, we love it, and we are so proud of the people there. And we think they're incredibly smart and talented and amazing and wonderful. And we want to learn from them, and we want to grow with them, and we want them to teach us how to be a better nation. And so in doing that, and to build a better community, and in doing that, High Envoy Fred goes out and he seeks people. And he says, hey, I think you're amazing and wonderful and talented. And here's what we're doing. What can we provide for you? Here's the things that we have the ability to currently provide for you. Teach us about what we can do to improve and how we can better provide for this area, whether it's for the citizens who become a part of the empire, or whether it's just to help the people who are in Huntsville, Alabama, who are, again, also talented and amazing, to continue to prosper and move up and improve. Because improvements in the local areas of Huntsville, Alabama, Birmingham, all these places, also help to improve the empire itself. So a rising tide raises all ships, and we want to help make that tide. That's a lot of what High Envoy Fred does. So there are all those houses, and there's also the House of Treasure, which is an economic house. They primarily deal with trade and business development and things like that in the empire, and that currently does not have a noble within it. All of the people who work in the governmental houses are considered nobles. There are masters of the houses, which are the highest title. They oversee an entire house, but that is not positions that we currently have filled. And in the House of Treasure, we don't even have a noble position active. So that's something that we would like to move forward with in the future, but we have to have a dedicated long-term who is capable of filling that role. And right now, we just don't have anyone that fits the bill. So if you consider yourself someone who might be interested in that and who doesn't currently have another micronational governmental position or micronational citizenship, definitely join us. And we would love to learn about you, love to see you develop as a citizen, and eventually become a noble and a government official, a part of a house. Once somebody lives on a territory of the Empire of Aeternia, which has been a record-breaking thing for the Empire here, as of the last month that Wright David has been a resident here at Talon and Vine Farm, we have established the concept of lords, where when we have more and more residents, and those residents need to be able to be organized, and all of their efforts need to be coordinated, and all of the resources that go through the hands of those residents, and all of the comings and goings of others from the territory, people who aren't citizens of Aeternia or residents of that territory, all of that needs to be managed by someone as it grows larger and larger. And at that point, we need someone who lives on the territory, who is a resident, who can actually provide that role, who can oversee all of those things, and who has the experience to do that. So that would be somebody who's already been established as a noble in some way, who's lived on the territory for quite a while, who understands its inner workings, and effectively takes over management of it. And at that point, we would appoint that person the lord of the territory. So they would be lord something of Talon and Vine Farm, or of Tay, or of another one of our territories. And so that is the structure of the Empire of Aeternia. And then again, that goes up to governance. So up to the emperorship. So that's the governmental layout of the empire. We actually have a map of the currently occupied positions in our government on our website at eternianempire.wixsite.com/imperial market. You can check it out. Links in our description to learn more. Parched Whale says, wait, how can you be an empire? Do you have a monarch? Empires have a monarch by definition. Yes. So I am the emperor of the Empire of Aeternia. That's how we establish that, at least for ourselves. Parchquail says not being able to be physically removed is the name of the game for being a nation. I suppose so. I mean, not being physically removed is the name of the game for being a nation. Not being able to be physically removed is kind of a different thing, right? Like, every nation, to some degree, has the ability to be removed because it can happen, right? Nobody is impervious to anything. It's just a sliding scale. So, sure, you can say, we are less qualified to be a nation because we have less defensive capabilities, and you can certainly argue that. But then you have to argue the same for Taiwan. You have to argue the same for smaller island nations. You have to argue the same for any nation that has to rely on its allies to support it, and who may or may not be recognized by other countries around the world. There are plenty of countries who are recognized by plenty of people who absolutely do not have the ability to completely be self-reliant militarily, economically. However, that's not exactly the way that the world works. For example, the nation of Tuvalu. Tuvalu is a country. They do not have land anymore. Their land was swallowed by the ocean and made unlivable very recently, as of the last few years. And yet, Tuvalu still has citizens. It still has a government that runs it. It still has, this diaspora of people who all consider themselves citizens of Tuvalu. That doesn't mean they don't deserve to be a nation. That doesn't mean they're not recognized as a nation by other people. That doesn't mean they don't operate and their citizens don't work and function as a part of a nation. They just struggle with it. They just have their own limitations and abilities there. Even amazing, huge empires like the Roman Empire, it wasn't that they were impervious and unable to be removed, because over time they were. It's a sliding scale. Bellamy says they can remove them. Parchquail says if anybody within the nation broke a U.S. law, even in a different U.S. locality, it was serious enough. Wouldn't national sovereignty for Eternia would crumble as the police arrive and march in? Yes, but you could say the same thing again about places like Taiwan. Sure, Taiwan has more military support and alliances and things like that. It's different scales. This is not a one-to-one comparison. But technically, if China has a very tight control over Taiwan, even though technically the US and its other allies could step in, and yes, Taiwan has the ability to militarily defend itself, China has been encroaching very aggressively and very publicly on that ability. And the government of Taiwan very publicly does not want to cause problems with China and follows some of the laws and regulations that China imposes on them because they do not want to fight China. And China continues to encroach on and change the perspective of what it means that Taiwan is an independent nation. Does that mean that that completely invalidates Taiwan as an independent nation? I certainly don't think so. I certainly don't think that's the case for Tuvalu or a lot of these other nations which have less ability to militarily support themselves. That's just a give and take of the conditions of certain nations. That happens all the time. However, it doesn't mean that you can't progress as a nation. It doesn't mean that you can't ebb and flow and build and change. And it doesn't mean that there aren't people who identify that, which is, I think, more deeply the concept of what a nation is. If there are people who go, I'm a part of a nation, I live and operate every day sincerely as a citizen of a nation, and I comply to laws and regulations, and I provide for that nation, and I work for that nation, and that's how I see the world, even if other people don't recognize that, that's okay. Those people are building and developing that. And so if there is a certain level of, authority that needs to check that box in your mind, and for you to recognize that, that's your own personal opinion. And that's perfectly reasonable to have. Everybody does that. Everybody picks and chooses and thinks about what they consider real and not real, or what that is valid for them. But for us, the Empire of Aeternia has real, tangible impact on our lives. every day. And we put that effort in every day. And we develop this because it is independent to us. And there are other people outside of Aeternia who recognize and view that as well. And so all we have to do is keep pushing that line and keep developing more and more of that cultural authority that translates into economic and political authority, both internal and external to Aeternia. Harsh Quail says, what's the GDP of Aeternia? That's a great question. I would say it is, so again, this is going to get outside of my realm of education. GDP would be gross domestic product. So how much is produced in the Empire of Aeternia that is then sold? That's very little. That may be within the hundreds of dollars a year in US dollars, very small. However, a lot of our income is provided by external means. We are fundamentally attached and connected to, economically, other nations, particularly the largest, and most militarily dominant nation to exist on the planet thus far, which we are landlocked inside of. And so we support that nation. Most of our citizens come from that nation, and yet still identify us as a separate entity and take the money and resources that they gather from that nation and invest them in furthering the cause of this one and in expanding the tangibility, if you will, the economic value of this nation. So year on year, we increase what that GDP is, that gross domestic product, in the strictest sense of how much we produce and export versus, then how much we import. However, how much we produce and export. If we're looking at the ratio of how much we produce and export to import, it is far in the imports. But that's another story. Republic of Sarah says, do you think he keeps track of everyone's personal income? I don't, and that's why I'm defining GDP the way that I am, which I think is the way that this person, Parched Quail, means, which it's a good question. Parched Quail says, nah, individual personal recognition is irrelevant. It's about if you can make your own laws or are beholden to those of another. I don't see why self-identification matters. That's certainly fine. We can uphold laws for anybody who consents to that. Logically, to expand on that, if somebody does not consent to the laws of any nation and they are aggressive enough about it, sure, you can kill that person, but that can cause lots of damage to the society and cause much chaos. If every situation were handled that way, your society would inevitably collapse. It is about a large enough investment of people to consent to those laws and to follow those laws and to ultimately concede to the punishments that come along with breaking those laws and go forward with them. For example, if every currently charged crime in the United States was brought to trial, for example, which is someone's legal right, for every charge brought against you, or for every case brought against you and a set of charges for a particular incident, you are eligible, according to the laws of the United States, for a trial, ideally by your peers. If that were to happen for every single case, in every single situation, that legal system would collapse. That's why there are so many plea deals, for example. People have to consent to, I broke the law, you got me. Okay, I will do the necessary things to either be punished for that and incarcerated or to pay back the society in some way. Because if the nation had to solely rely on violently affecting every person who broke the law, it would be very hard to maintain order at all. And nations don't operate that way. They have to operate on consent and the ability to maintain that consent. Sure, they do have mechanisms for violently enforcing those who step out of line, so to speak, but it still has to be majority consent, at very least. And I'd even argue larger than that, a high majority, 98%, something like that. If 2, 5, 9% of your society is actively, physically fighting you, it is very hard to maintain a society at all. Your ability to enact violence on people, to put down disagreements, is not the only measure of a nation, and is absolutely not the most effective measure of a nation. Okay. Parch Quail says, it's not about their personal income. It's if the money is made in the US, it's not Aeternia's GDP. It's only revenue earned within the bounds of Aeternia. Sure. Bellamy says, yeah, they have a farm. Republic of Sarah says, if so, that would be 11th since they're making their income outside of the Empire, I assume, at least. Bellamy says, how our government works is we have an administrative council. Someone submits something they want to fix for the administrative council. The administrative council decides that those important, the citizens can vote. Very cool. Okay. So, let's see. I'm going to go down to Parch Quail just because we're doing this back and forth here. And then I'm going to have to end it pretty quick, guys. Parch Quail says, still not convinced it's a nation. Sounds like it's still beholden to the state and federal laws and enforcement and law enforcement from the United States. And if that's your definition of a nation, then that's your definition of a nation. And, you know, we're going to continually disagree with that. But that's your choice. Again, we have plenty of people who self-identify and work every day as imperial citizens, as people who recognize us the same way they do any other nation on Earth. So, again, you know, it is a perspective thing, ultimately. We have value that we affect for the people who affect us, and that is, at the end of the day, the society and civilization that we're building. We have the trappings of a nation. We have the ability to advance our goals and to push forward into things that, while you may not see legitimize us currently, while we may not have checked all of your boxes, we have the means to get there. And so all we're doing in this larger political game is moving forward because of convincing people who are more and more stubbornly refusing our claims to eventually check all of their boxes to consider us a nation, particularly an independent civilization. Now, we aren't pushing all of our goals to be aligned with speed running your checks of your boxes, but they will happen eventually. Sarah says, well, wait, step back. You said government housing. Bellamy says, well, it's a project, not necessarily a real nation. Aeternia is trying to get real recognition. Well, Bellamy, again, I disagree with that. We are self-identifying as an independent nation. We consider ourselves and our citizens and our government officials and our residents, when they step onto imperial territory, they are stepping onto a different country. We're not a secessionist nation. We're not saying we're taking this land and it's not a part of the United States. It's not that. But it is a separate entity. It is different. It's still beholden to the laws of the United States. There is some aspect in which we have to compromise, but that doesn't diminish the things that we do here. That doesn't diminish our independence and our recognition of our independent state. Parch Quail says, those island nations aren't claiming territory that is part of existing nations, and Taiwan has a military. Like a U.S. judge could issue a warrant and dispatch police. Sure, absolutely. Again, China very regularly has said, you know, we could at any point dispatch the Chinese military and take Taiwan if we really wanted to. And they do aggressive tactics to push that. Again, not a one-to-one comparison at all. But if you were saying that, then anybody who had a weapon, could say, oh, well, I have an independent nation because I'm going to violently defend it against law enforcement. But that's the wrong way to think. That doesn't provide any larger benefit or actually affect a long-term development of a society, of a civilization which has larger achievements, that provides a high quality of life for its citizens, that does things like you've suggested are the markings of recognition for you, like improvement of GDP. That's totally disconnected from ability to militarily advance its interests. And yet, it is a defining characteristic for you. Republic of Sarah says, thank you, Parched Quail. Parched Quail says, just sounds more like a co-op. Sure, I completely understand that. Republic of Sarah says, is Carthage still a country even after being taken over by the Romans? That's a good question. Parched Quail says, every single case can have a trial. Plea deals happen when the person chooses not to go to trial. They can choose a trial. Violently enforcing the law is the basis of all nations, and a good thing. I don't necessarily know about that. Again, the basis of a nation, I don't agree with as well. You said every case can have a trial. No, it can't, mathematically. The number of cases that actively are in a court's system versus the amount that go to trial are starkly different. If you talk to any public defender, somebody who works pro bono cases for the state or who works paid small commission work for the state in defending people who don't have an attorney, will tell you they are booked up. The courts have to, if you get in large enough legal trouble, have to book your case out for months, potentially 3, 4, 5 months out to even start a trial process that takes months, if not sometimes years, to get a final verdict on and get an actual full trial established. So that being the case, if every single charge, if every single case went to trial, the legal system would not be able to handle that volume. It just doesn't. It does not have that capability. That is why plea deals are so important to the legal system in the United States. There are not enough judges. There aren't enough physical courtrooms or courthouses built. There aren't enough public defenders. It is not possible. It is not possible for every single person's trial to be held. It doesn't work that way. Bellamy says, well, I have to go. Eternia forever. It was nice to see you. Thank you so much, Bellamy. Eternia forever. We'll see you soon. Hey, High Envoy Fred jumped in and said, great stream, AP. Thank you so much. High Envoy Fred is the High Envoy for Huntsville, Alabama. So he is one of the people who recognizes us as an independent nation. High Envoy Fred says, definitely, there are many definitions of a nation. At the end of the day, it just matters what people believe and care about and value. We value our ideals, and that's what unites us as a nation. Absolutely. Parched Quail says, can't be both an independent nation and not secessionist. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a co-op or a free enterprise of people that is meaningful and a part of the U.S. I completely understand what you're saying. And High Envoy Fred, I do hear your statements as well. Though again, that is not the way that we define ourselves. We do define ourselves as an independent nation, and we are not secessionists. We can be an independent nation, a set of people who are establishing on physical territory a civilization that we will support and protect as independent, as separate from any other nation. And yet, we don't have to say, and we're taking this land from another country. We're going to fight you over it. That doesn't have to be the case. That's not mutually exclusive. And we intend to prove that. So we will, as we continue forward. And as always, Eternia forever. Thank you so much for watching and spending time with us. Again, for those of you who want to learn more and who want to participate, including you, Parched, please continue to hit us with your questions. Please continue to talk to us and watch our development. even if you don't recognize us as an independent nation, it's very important that you see what we're doing so that you can continue to judge for yourself and see if we ever check any of those boxes that make you reconsider your position, or at very least establish with us what we're doing that may be moving toward that direction. So again, thank you so much for your support, and we will see you soon. Aeternia forever. I actually have to end it on my phone. Excuse me, everyone.